cool. All right. Look at us. Wow.
SpaceX did finish the rocket launch.
Yeah, they
cool
had a pretty cool launch today. I was watching that this morning. Kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. Hi, friends. Welcome to another great edition of the Firing Pin live stream. We've got some special guests here tonight from the Scouts, as you might have been able to guess. And yes, I am I don't know, is it like being is it like once a Marine, always a Marine? Like, so, am I still a Scout? Yeah. Okay.
I did venture crew. Does that count?
He was the president of our venture crew.
There you go. 2 years in a row.
No big deal. Yeah. Till, COVID basically took it out. We ended a little bit before then.
Yeah, because I was 21.
Yeah. We were like, let's shut it down. Tyler can't participate. There's no point anymore. We have some sponsors that sponsor the stream. So I'm just going to bring them up first. Ty, actually, why don't you go ahead? You know so much about.
So if I brought the name Arms Preservation Inc., if I said that to you, what would you expect them to do? Just take a guess. Arms Preservation Inc.
I would think they would do historical rifles.
Okay.
That's a good guess.
That's a great guess.
Yeah.
The preservation of the right to bear arms, I would think.
I love that one too.
Good. Yeah. So they preserve the actual gun or ammo itself. So it's these blue bags.
These guys right here.
They are made locally here in East Rochester.
Fairport.
Is it Fairport?
It is Fairport.
That's the same thing, I think. They have a vapor corrosion inhibiting
property inside.
I
don't know how the
off
science
gases
works.
while your gun's in there. So this actually might be a great thing for the council to look into, see if we can hook you guys up with these to store all the firearms, because you use the firearms for like camp up at Massaweepy, right? And then they probably sit in a safe or in a locked, in a vault somewhere the rest of the year. These will keep them nice and safe and secure, and it's kind of nice too because you can stack them up. Like you don't really want guns like rubbing and scratching each other. Yeah. If you put each gun in there, you can stack them in a safe real easy, and it keeps them from rusting or corroding, which is pretty cool. Local company, real good friends of ours. And obviously, a big part of being a Scout is being physically fit. So we have a gym that sponsors us, which is Beyond Driven. I'm going to say performance and fitness. I don't know. It's performance and fitness, right? Fitness and performance though works too. And they are actually Genesee County's voted #1 gym. So if you're ever out in this area and you're looking for the best gym in the area, Beyond Driven, they're the best. It's confirmed. So
literally confirmed.
Our guests. Why don't we go around, introduce ourselves? Tyler, why don't we start with you? Who are you?
Hi, I'm Tyler. And
you've been in the scouting movement since 2014.
Yeah,
right?
I'd say, yeah. We started the venture crew.
Yeah.
That's it. Didn't I never got a cool uniform.
I should have gotten you a uniform. I regret not getting you one.
It was fun though, like with Venture Crew 556, it was teaching, it was Venture Crew, so it was the older Scouts, I think graduating 8th grade and to 21. Yep. So it was just nice, like we had I think like 20 members at one point.
We had a pretty healthy group.
And just teaching them how to like take down field strip ARs, clean them, and all that cool stuff. It was really cool, like teaching younger kids the respect of firearms that they don't get in school. So that was kind of the only scouting I did. We did camping though.
We did go camping a couple times.
Outfit.
Yeah, we took. These were kids that had like never had any experience in any scout program at all. We wanted a youth group where we shot guns, and so we started one up, and we got into going on some hikes and going camping a couple times, and it was fun.
My favorite memory was, I guess, the OCPIC training where we did the winter camping and it hit -14. I woke up and it was snowing in the tent from condensation.
Yeah,
that was fun.
And I was down in Florida, like, sorry, I'm at work. Sorry, work trip that weekend.
That was
storm of the century. Like, so I'm Brandon from the Firing Pin. Most likely that's where you know me from. But I also, for a time, worked at Scout Camp. Not ones that you guys are affiliated with, but ones from the Iroquois Trail Council, which was more like Batavia area where I'm from. So I used to work at Camp Dittmer. I worked at Camp Sam Wood, Eagle Scout, Order of the Arrow, all that. We can go into that later. And we've got the Scout executive.
Yeah, Dittmer's in our council technically. So
that's right. Within your geographic council. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Steve Hoyt. I serve as executive director for the Seneca Waterways Council, which is really Rochester and the Finger Lakes region.
Mhm.
You know, I grew up in scouting in New Hampshire. I joined when I was in second grade. That's when you could join back then. And I'm getting old. But with that, I never left. You know, I just kind of went through the program, was on camp staff like you did,
Yeah.
in our camps in New Hampshire. And then as soon as my last year of college, I got recruited to come full time to work for the Scouts and started
Nice.
in Vermont and kind of worked around the Northeast. And I've been in Rochester now about 14 years.
Very cool. Very cool.
Hello, I'm Eric Faulkman. I've been in Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout from Long Island. You can catch that accent every so often. And then when I came up here and my son was old enough and he got into Cub Scouts, I became the Cub Master, and then I just kept going, and I'm still going. I have served as camp staff for shooting sports at a few camps, mainly Babcock Covey, and am now active as the council shooting sports chairperson.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. So yeah, there was a conversation, right? I can't remember who reached out, but I think we've been in conversation, the firing pin and Seneca Waterways for, several years back
And
and
we've done a
forth.
couple projects.
Yeah.
So,
We've supported the Hazelton Sporting Clays
Sporting
shoot.
Clay Tournament,
Yep,
our-
every
our
year.
largest fundraiser.
That's super fun time. We'll plug that in a little bit here, but yeah. So I guess what made sense, like the reason, I always try to support Scouts whenever I can, and for me, that's because the firing pin exists. I think in a large part due to scouting. That was where I was first shooting a gun, and that's what got me hooked on marksmanship and just firearms in general. And I think that's where I got my first taste of business. My first year working at Scout Camp, I ran the trading post. So I was like a clerk at the trading post, and I was selling stuff. And my council at the time, they were like, look, this is what we bought for the trading post, and we're not buying anything else. And I was like, but kids want like other stuff, like pocket knives or just whatever, different kinds of candy. And they were like, okay, but this is what we bought. So I was like, well, if I buy stuff with my money, could I like have another little ledger? And they were like, whatever, we don't care. Like, so that was kind of my little first foray into business, I think. And yeah, obviously, I was in scouting from the time I was in, I think first grade was when I could join in Tigers. I think. Yeah. So I've been in my whole life basically. And I think it really helped develop me into a leader. So I think it's a super important movement. I've, again, a little biased, I guess, because I've been involved pretty much my whole life up until, basically recently. But yeah, so I'm super excited to have you guys on.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate hearing about scouting.
So we've got a little, Tyler's going to do some Chef Ramsay, some cooking. We sell, I guess this is a little shameless plug that we sell some of this kind of stuff too here. Yeah.
It's like camping.
Got a little fettuccine Alfredo with your friends. Yeah. So yeah, I guess let's talk about, we briefly kind of touched on how we got here. But I guess like, what does a scout executive do? What do you do? Like you went pro, like you get paid to be a scout. Like how does that work? Yeah, I got paid when I worked at summer camp. It was like $200 a week. So like,
so I really figured out when you get paid, you don't get to do the fun things nearly as much as you used to. It's like you're talking about insurance and business and other stuff, and the canoeing and all the other fun things. It's kind of
right.
Somebody else gets to do all that kind of stuff. So, but I think we're pretty blessed on the Rochester staff, and we've got about almost 30 employees working for the council now, and they do a variety of things. So everything from running program, because we have a team that does that. There's a 3-person team full time year round that does that. Probably have about 8 people now that work field operations, and they're really the advisors. They're coaching units and helping units as they transition Cub Masters or Scout Masters.
Yeah.
They got a development team that runs the events, like we talked about Sporting Clays.
Yeah.
You got support staff that who enters applications for kids and registration.
Sure.
And processes advancement records and camping records and all that kind of stuff. So that, and then you got the camp, and then you got rangers and the sport people there who just get the facility ready.
Right.
And everything from plowing the roads in the winter to putting new roofs on buildings and just maintenance and general operations. So it's a huge operation. So just our Rochester Council alone, and that's a budget of about $4.5 million.
Wow.
Just to help make that go and help make sure that organization is there to support those kids who just, they go out to camp, they go tenting, have a great time and great experiences, but behind the scenes, it's about $4.5 million operation just to make sure they can have that experience.
Wow.
Well put. Like it's a good program. You know what I mean? It's reserved.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Scouting is super important.
So another question, Ty, actually you had this question. I know in recent years, it's actually not Boy Scouts anymore, right? Is it?
Yeah, well, it's still Boy Scouts of America, right? It's still the official title. But the programs, we don't use Boy Scouts for what was formerly the Boy Scout program. We all knew as growing up as kids. So going in, I'll get my calendar dates right, 2019, we started opening up to girls being in the program. So actually, I think it was fall of 2018. Eric can correct me on that one, but I believe Cub Scouting rolled out for girls in fall of 2018. And then that following February of 2019, girls could join Scouts, or what was formerly Boy Scouts. We just call it Scouts BSA or Scouts. As you guys already pointed out, venturing already existed, and that was already co-ed, which was great for us actually, because that was a great predecessor for us to help, facilities, infrastructure, and getting things ready. And then Rochester, ironically, had piloted the exploring program for the entire country. It's one of 4 cities that did that.
That's cool.
So we already had a large program. So you think of fire explorers, or police cadets, or usually all explorers, but we're doing engineering, we're doing photography, we're doing a lot of other things in that program. So we already had a pretty good blend of co-ed kids in the organization. So as the younger groups that are coming on board, we've now had 30-something girls work their way up to Eagle Scout.
That's awesome.
In Rochester alone.
Yeah.
And so it's been a great experience, and it's a great way to introduce leadership skills and character development to a group of kids that wouldn't get us along the way.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah. And so, you spoke that obviously there's a lot of girls that are joining. Do you have like a rough, I know it's not 50-50, but if you could put a number on it, how many girls do you think you have in the
I would.
council?
Someone's going to correct me in a stat, or they're going to see the podcast and say that was wrong. But I'm going to say we're knocking at 20% of our membership
That's
now
awesome.
is female.
Yeah.
And with that and the program, it's starting to get to the point now where you have almost every single Cub Scouting program has girls enrolled in it for us. And so you have communities where we started up about 24, 25 girl troops. So the Scouts BSA program, former Boy Scout program, is not co-ed.
Yeah.
They have girl troops, they have boy troops.
Right.
And so we have so many girls that are in the Cub Scout program, girls that are in Cub Scouts, that when they're graduating at Cub Scouts, there's not girl troops everywhere.
Sure.
So there's about 100 boy troops that exist throughout the council, our council, but you only get about 24, 26 girl troops. So there's still a lot of gaps.
Sure.
And so you have communities, you think of Monroe County, it really doesn't matter where you're at, there's something pretty close. But as you start getting spread out through the Finger Lakes region,
That can be tough. Yeah.
It starts to be, especially Seneca County, some other spots. So there's still a lot of gaps. And so for girls that are in younger ages wanting to cross over, not all those communities have got critical mass where they've got a large enough group to help form those troops yet.
So how does it work? So it's 2 separate, like it's girl troops, boy troops. How does Jamboree work and stuff?
Yeah, so,
do they all come together?
Yeah, so they do. They'll usually be in separate areas. So a girl troop and a boy troop usually won't share a campsite unless they're sponsored by the same organization.
Okay.
So, but most of the units are sponsored by either service club or church.
I don't want to interrupt, but it does seem the ones that I'm familiar with, it's like the same location will have a girl troop and a boy troop, because it's I have, well, he isn't born yet, but I have 2 daughters and I'm gonna have a son here soon, so it'd be very hard to meet 2 different meeting nights or 2 different locations, whatever. So I think on a practicality, I don't know, I can't foresee the future, but I think eventually we got to build up to it, but I think eventually they'll go co-ed. I have no idea, but maybe it won't.
Huge debate, right? Real huge debate in the organization, because a lot of people from a consumer standpoint we would just want the co-ed experience because convenience makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that don't sit back and say, well, wait a minute, what makes Scouts? Let's take Boy Scouting for a second. What makes Boy Scouting successful? And we take kids, we put them in an environment where we make them fail. Or you think of that very first camp out that went on, right? If you ever had an 11-year-old going to camp out and you say to the kids, okay, what do you want to cook for meals? We're going to do, I don't know, spaghetti. That'd be cool. We'll have spaghetti for dinner, right? So you and as Scoutmaster, you just go ahead and plan the menu. So you want spaghetti, homemade meatball sounds great. And so you make up this crazy menu as a bunch of 11-year-olds with no thought in mind about how to cook, prepare, clean.
Yeah.
And then what
Food
happens?
safety. What's food safety?
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
and then you get into the camp out and nobody wants to cook, nobody wants to clean. Dinner's a disaster. Nobody does dishes. Breakfast the next morning, the dishes from the night before still aren't done. And it's a total disaster in that first camp out. But from it, you learn responsibility and doing a duty roster and having separate roles and taking responsibility. And what we found out in venturing, even at 14, is when you get to a co-ed environment, what happens is that young man who's not really up much for initiative yet just kind of sits back and says, the young lady, you got it. You take care of it.
Sure. Yeah. And I followed the debate when they started, talking about having girls in general, which was silly because they've been adventuring and exploring for 100 years or 50 years, whatever it was. And every other country in the world, it's just scouts, or almost every other country, I should say. But anyways, there was a small part of me, I'm an only child, so I didn't have older brothers or older sisters, right? And so I enjoyed when we went on a troop. You're 11. You feel like you're in the army almost, which I know that's not the point, but that's kind of how you feel. You feel like you're part of a unit. You're in a patrol, and you're this, and not that girls ruin it, but like they have cooties and stuff, and they kind of ruin it. No, I'm just kidding. But when you're 11, that's how you feel, right? So I definitely could see that side of it where I had 20 older brothers, and there was a probably Lord of the Flies might not be the right.
Some use pretty well.
But there's, what I mean? There's something, we lived from it, right? We weren't, who was the one that they crushed with the rock? None of that happened to us, right? So we're good. But I'm, as a dad, I've got, like I said, 2 daughters. I'm very glad that if they choose to, that they can become Eagle Scouts, that they can learn, the best leadership development program I think that still exists, that's ever existed for youth. They can be a part of that too. So I think ultimately it was the right move, but
and that's one thing. It's interesting as you talk about World Scouting because it's really what does make the Boy Scouts of America different than the rest of the members of the World Scout Bureau. And leadership development really became a huge experience that existed in the Boy Scouts of America that didn't existed everywhere, but not to the same extent. And so and from an organizational standpoint, saying how do you keep that pure? How do you really make sure that you're focused on leadership development in young people? And so that's really where this debate comes in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years. As kind of the consumer does want that co-ed experience for convenience. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. For kids to go through the program, they're still, kids are even split on it. I've had kids, my own kids have gone through and they're like, never. And they understand the difference and why. But
I guess, you almost leave it up to the unit too. I mean, if a unit wants to form as a co-ed unit, let them. And if a unit wants to stay just boys, I guess, and then there's a girl component too, or I don't know.
Probably going to sugar out. I'm going to guess probably similar to what most college campuses have figured out. That I have co-ed dorms, and I have an all-male dorm, and I have an all-female dorm. And I let the participants pick where they want to be.
But that makes sense.
We'll see how it evolves.
So I wasn't able to get the comments up, Ty. Do we have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, so we have some wise guys in chat.
I'm sure.
I love it.
There's always a couple.
A really regular watcher of ours asks, what would be the best knot for tying up a home intruder?
I would say a bowline knot because they can't get out of it. Like it won't tighten up on them, right? You don't want to cut off circulation too bad. You don't want to hurt them. I would say a bowline.
I'm not going to get into
Do we have paracord? Show us how to do one. Can you even do one? He's like, can I do one?
I'm hurt right now.
Considering that you would use a bowline to rescue somebody.
Right, yeah.
To rescue
that's going to be my rationale, to use a bowline to rescue somebody.
Come in to the shop between now and the next stream and show us that you can tie a one-handed bowline, and I'll give you a high five.
We'll give you an MSR.
Tyler will give you, you can have the first person to come in and do that can get this little tiny bottle of Tabasco.
From 2009.
From the MRE.
From 2009.
It's Tabasco. It can't go bad.
It's
just vinegar.
It's like white, dude. Those things are good. I wanted to ask you, do you guys want any gum from 2009?
No, thank you. It's smart. It's smart. No, I'm good.
I'll try it.
I'm good. So I know there has been, I don't want to get into too much of the backstory of it, but obviously, like some camps have had to have been sold and stuff like that. I mean, scouting's not as popular as it used to be, unfortunately, back in like the 70s and 80s when everybody was in scouting, it seemed like. The camp that I worked at, Camp Dittmer, is on the market right now. If anybody's got 3.7 million and wants to buy an amazing 400-acre property, go do it.
Oh, the taxes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the problem. Yeah, it's the taxes. Yeah. So obviously you guys have Massaweepy.
Mhm.
That's like a gem of all gems of scout camps. That's not going anywhere. What other properties you guys have?
So we have the same debate though on the Babcock Hobby property now. We
Mhm.
put up on the market
Mhm.
probably a year before the different property went up.
Yep.
Just about every Boy Scout council in New York ended up putting a property on the market.
Yeah.
Or they came up with some other strategy.
Right.
Um,
Right. Sold parts of their camps
sold
or
parts
sold,
of their camp or something of that nature.
There's- I think Barton did that.
Yeah,
Didn't
so
they?
Binghamton, it was
Yeah.
Barton,
Yeah.
Elmira was their Pennsylvania camp, Jamestown was their Pennsylvania camp.
Yeah.
Utica, I think, did a couple camps. Buffalo did 2, 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a challenge in that regard. I mean, COVID really hurt on the Cub
Mhm.
Scouting
Yeah.
front, and I think the biggest kind of challenge with the organization today is that pre-COVID 2019 we had double the number of kids in Cub Scouting
Wow.
as you had in Scouts PSA or
Wow.
Boy Scouts. Today, in some councils, it's still inverted. You have more Scouts than you have Cub
Wow.
Scouts.
Which is tough, from when I remember as helping at camp and trying to boost numbers and things like that. You needed more Cub Scouts because there's an attrition rate. Not every Cub Scout becomes a Boy Scout. And I don't know if it's still like this, but not many people join like the scouting as an old, like you usually join as a Cub and then you carry over and you stay. But I think it's less common to join as like an 11 or 12-year-old, right? Is that still pretty true?
It's actually gotten better, ironically.
That's good.
But
That's good.
But
Yeah.
it's still very much an issue. And
Yeah.
and so for us, we've got finally to the point where we have more Cub Scouts than Scouts, but it's not 2 to 1.
Mhm.
And I think we were counting year end. I think we have 26 more Scout troops than we have Cub Scout packs.
Mhm.
And so the challenge really becomes,
Wow.
and you think of it actually back up from a 7-year-old kid perspective during COVID. COVID was a Zoom call. If
Yeah.
you're 7 years old, Cub Scouts was like school,
Yeah.
and it was kind of
Yeah.
boring. On the other hand, Scout troops became these huge innovative opportunities to do stuff in your backyard, and you're using Slack and Zoom and multiple programs
That's cool.
and doing creative stuff. So troops figured a great way
Yeah,
to
yeah.
innovate and survive.
Stronger with the younger
The
kids.
Cub Scouts just
Yeah.
couldn't do. And so most Cub Scouts fell apart during COVID. I mean, I think we lost 75 packs on our council alone.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's
And
awful.
so that really hurts. And some have come back.
Yeah.
But as school access to some other issues have struggled in some neighborhoods, it's tough to get some of these programs going. So
Sure.
there's still huge, large sections where we have no Cub Scout programs that we're
Yeah.
still trying to get going.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm sure you guys do a lot with the city of Rochester,
Mhm,
right?
we do.
And I'm sure that's an area that everybody needs leadership development, no matter where you live. But I'm sure they need it more, than maybe some of the other areas that get a little bit more resources from other places.
And we do 2 programs in the city. We do traditional scouting like you do anywhere else,
Mhm.
but we also run a volunteer, a staff run program. The city paid scoutmasters that basically go in, or cubmasters that run programs, school programs.
Very cool.
And so it's
I
kind
didn't
of
know about that.
it's a nice way to get the program, but a paid leader running, paid cubmaster, paid den leader running the program for school is not the same thing that you or I did or Eric
Sure.
did kids.
Right.
So they're not. The challenge of that program is you can only run to the extent of your wallet. So you're not. You're not camping as much. You're not doing activities as much.
Sure.
You're doing a basic program, but it's a very basic program.
Yeah.
And so a lot of kids will start in the Scout Reach program, and then they really get hyped on it, and they'll transfer over into a traditional program.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's a weird taste.
The fettuccine, is it
No.
ready?
This is the 2009
Oh, the gum.
Amarita.
It's probably the botulism.
That's why it's getting hard to breathe.
It's probably the. Oh my gosh. So, do you have any other questions down there from the peanut gallery?
Donna comments that the creme brulee is amazing. Yes, that is for dessert.
It is. It's very good.
Wait till you guys have any allergies, by the way, I didn't ask. Creme brulee is fantastic. I'm not gonna force you to eat, but after we have our course.
Do I look like I need to be forced?
I think we all have that problem
Yeah.
here. Jonathan says he thinks it is important for there to be like an only boys club, which I can see that point as well, with the scared of being co-ed.
Well, it's interesting. And a side note, a lot of the troops that started off, did exactly what you said. They had boy troop, sister troop,
Mhm.
and they started kind of together. and over time, most of them have drifted apart.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it sounds simple, but the boys want to go fishing and the girls want to go hiking.
Yeah, yeah, and that was something I always, there's some troops that do this really well. There are some that don't do this well, but my troop was very good at a youth-run organization. I've always really liked that. I mean, yeah, there are leaders there, and the kids aren't like handling the finances of the troop and stuff like that. But hey, like there would be a patrol leaders council, right, camp out that my troop would do every year, and we would just go on a camping trip and like, okay, we went and canoed for a while down to like Allegheny State Park, and then let's come back up and plan like what are we gonna do for the rest of the year? All right, we're gonna do one camp out a month. We're gonna do one major trip or whatever, right? So then the leaders were like, yeah, I mean, we'll do all those things the safe way, but yeah, we'll do whatever you guys want to do. So that is cool though. They've, they want to do this, they go do it. So, so let's talk about shooting. Let's bring it back to Second Amendment shooting sports stuff. Like I said, for those of you that maybe are just tuning in or just joining us, we're here with Steve and Eric with the Seneca Waterways Scout Council, and they, that's where I think a lot of people start their firearms journey. That could be the first time they ever get to see a firearm, or maybe they've seen them, but they never get the chance to shoot one. Mom won't let them at their house, or, they live where, I was lucky as a kid. I could just go out back and shoot in my backyard. Right. But there's a lot of, can't do that in most places. So, what do you see? Like you start at what age? Is it Weeblos? When's like the younger, when do they start shooting like BB guns?
Well, you've got to remember we're in New York State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the BB guns can start at 8 years old.
Okay.
So that's basically the wolf level,
Okay.
in terms of age.
Which would be like your second year, right? Doesn't it go tiger?
Well,
and then,
now it's lion, tiger, then wolf.
Mhm.
So essentially it's kindergarten first, so second grade.
So second graders.
Usually.
Okay. Yeah.
And Cutler has a very nice BB gun range. So units that go down there can shoot on council property.
Yeah.
We have the required certified instructors. BSA is great in terms of delineating who can be instructors, what kind of training they have.
Mm-hmm.
And we all, as a council, we develop a standard operating procedure for the ranges so that whoever goes there and is certified to run the range has rules and regs, if you will, in terms of safety, because really that's our number one priority.
Yeah.
In terms of after BB gun, the Weeblos really can't do much more unless they're at a long-term camp. Then they can do pellet guns. That's an exception. But when we get into the scouts level, then they're allowed to use the 22s and shotguns.
Yeah.
So, and to me, that's the most shotgun. I happen to enjoy shotgun shooting, but to me, it's the most fun because when that young person breaks their first bird,
Yep.
Yeah.
the smile on their
Yeah.
face,
Yeah.
So
It-
satisfying.
it
Yeah.
literally goes here to here.
Yeah. Shoot,
A
Um,
shoot,
lot more immediate gratification.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Shooting bullseyes is fun, but it's, it's a piece of paper. Right. Yeah. Having that clay and all your buddies are going, yeah, like you got
That's
it.
exactly
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But the big thing is safety, and we work with them to be successful.
Mhm.
At that level, we have all NRA instructors.
Yeah.
You have to have an NRA instructor, and if they're just at camp, they also have to have a range safety officer. So again, safety is our number one thing. Fun is number two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we try to get them up shooting as soon as possible.
Mhm.
And in terms of preparation, anytime I've run a range, I have them handle the guns before they go and get ready to shoot.
Sure.
Because it's nothing about like, okay, look at this picture and look at that picture. It's like, no, go ahead, show me how to load with dummy rounds. Show me
Yeah.
how to get in position safely
Right.
and things like that.
Yeah.
But again, and like you said, you hit it right on the head. So few people, well, I shouldn't say so few, because again, we're in this area, but there are fewer that have the access to firearms and the ability to,
Sure.
handle them and learn how to do it safely.
Yeah.
They see these TV shows,
It's everywhere. Yeah.
And it's like,
Right.
that's not what happens. That
Right.
you want, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to digress a little bit, but I'm going to take a little, avenue here. Hollywood, as bad as they make firearms out in the media or all those things, our side of it, people are actually in the gun community. We always do our best to make sure to do our best. I always try to
Nice
like that. Yeah. We do our best to make sure that we're doing everything as safe as we can, by the books, getting the certifications, doing all this. And then the movies in Hollywood, fingers are on the trigger, no muzzle awareness, and just outright unsafe practices,
Yep.
but we get the bad rap, not necessarily the scouts, but,
kind
gun
of-
owners get the bad rap.
To kind of piggyback on that, like one of the issues we always have as a firearm industry is we're super pro safety, but we're always taken off of Facebook, YouTube, every social media platform because we're just associated with firearms. But it's the same on Instagram, you can watch somebody literally get shot to death. So all they're doing is they're banning the appropriate good uses of firearms, and they're only showing the negative
Yes.
Right.
left and right. And
Very true.
Violence.
it sucks. And again, that's why I love the BSA program doing all this.
Yeah, and we're
because-
one of the last. There's others, but
Yeah.
we're one of the few last standing to still do shooting sports on throughout every level of our program.
It's so
Right.
important.
And I'll inevitably, it doesn't happen every year, but I'll have a mom or a dad to call all upset. Why do you even do this at camp? And my attitude has always been the same: is that the number of kids, you never know when a kid's gonna be at a friend's house and somebody
Exactly.
wants to show off and
Sure.
say, "Look, my dad has a gun."
Exactly.
And I would much rather teach a kid how to make sure that's handled safely
Mhm.
and point in the right direction.
Mhm.
And even if the kid never shoots ever again, but at least he's on the range with Eric and they learn, hey, there's gun safety and you always keep the muzzle pointed as if it was loaded.
Yeah.
And learning those basic fundamentals that we
Yep.
all took for granted or learned when we were kids.
Mhm.
Um, But those skills are super important to teach kids and sadly, not everybody hears that. And we'll hear stories
Right.
from every year somewhere in the country of some kid that
Some
gets
kid
shot
gets killed.
at a friend's house.
Yep.
And that thankfully they seem to be less and less over time. But
Mhm.
I think it's still important that we teach kids the right way to handle a
Yeah.
firearm, even if they have no intention of ever owning one.
Right.
Just to add to that, I mean, just because you personally don't believe in firearm ownership doesn't mean your kid's not going to go to a friend's house. Just like you were saying, I really want to hit that hard.
Right. Yeah, you can swear like, well, we'll
Guns are
never have
bad.
guns in this house, but like, there's hundreds of millions of them that exist in this country.
Find one at the park. You
Yeah.
can find,
Right.
they're everywhere.
Let me know.
Yeah, right.
That sounds like a good park. Yeah.
First of all, don't tell anybody. Tell
First of
dad.
all,
Dad will
yeah.
come and take it.
For
For legal reasons, that's a joke.
So I see you have. I always like whenever scouts that have like never met each other. There's always that like, oh, okay, what do you got? All right, you got some knots up here. All right,
want it, yeah.
camp school. All right, camp school. Okay, so
Can I pick apart your uniform and ask questions? Because
Yeah.
I'm looking at you guys all decorated. And, okay, so what are the gray little? You have gray, I guess, bands up on the
Epaulets.
shoulder.
Epaulets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are there different colors?
There is. So depending on the color, depends where you're registered.
Okay.
So a silver or gray would mean you're registered at the council level. That's kind of your primary volunteer role. So you'll see guys with gold, that means on the national staff, or so different colors will pertain to where your registration spot is.
Okay.
When I was a youth, it was red. Was the like if you were just a scout, if you were a kid, you would have red ones, or like the leaders in your troop would have red ones. And then when I worked at camp, you were like employed by council, so our camp had like a camp venture crew that we were like all in.
Right.
So yeah, so we
do the
had
same
the
thing.
silver ones, yeah. 'cause
Same
we were
thing,
at,
they all wear green shirts like Eric has.
yeah, that's pretty common too. Yep. So
My other shirt has green for this venturing crew that I am part of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you combine them? Like, can you do like?
Oh, there's
gray-
always units to come up with creative strategies of whatever colors and.
it's kind of one of those things too, where yeah, like scouting, it's more like guidelines, obviously, right? Like it's not the military, so it's like yes, this is the proper way, but like yeah, like I've seen troops with they'll put like their troop numbers, or like
Yeah.
they'll have ones that have like fleur-de-lis and stuff on them, and no one's gonna like you take those off right now, like
Well, there might be a few.
yeah, there are some, or like if you go to Jambo with those, you'll get some.
Jambo,
You'll
should
get
be.
some. You'll get some crusty. Yeah.
Someone like my age.
I didn't say. No. Remember that movie We Were Soldiers? Did you ever see that movie?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's like the young chipper guy. He's like, "Morning, Sergeant." He's like, how do you know what kind of day it is? Like, there's always guys like that they were in the Army and then they put this on and they
They're
think they're
back
still
in.
a staff sergeant like in the Army. Yeah.
So I know you were explaining to I know about Eagle Scout. You were explaining how this one is the adult version of Eagle Scout, but I see you guys have several more. So you have like this. This is I guess a khaki border. You have one with green.
Yeah,
Is
they
that-
don't make them anymore. That's how old I am.
Okay, that's cool though. I like that. Like,
The ones now are mainly only khaki that are official. This was made back in the 70s, I think, is when they
that's so cool.
stopped.
I was going to date that for you.
I don't worry about those things. I enjoy life where I am.
There you go.
But serious, that's all it is. It's just
Okay.
to match the uniform.
So the purple and
This
silver.
one was a religious award that I earned as a youth,
Very cool.
and that's actually the Arrow of Light, which you earn as a Cub Scout.
Okay.
So at each level, Scouts have one rank, I will say, that can be worn and recognized as an adult. And that's all that is. And this just happens to be a Ventrim award.
Cool.
The purple one, is that the Catholic one?
Well, all religions will be the same.
Oh,
Yeah.
you got the religious one as a
Yeah.
kid? Yeah.
The only difference is reverse the colors, and you got the religious award as an adult.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So
I
if
would-
you had silver with a purple knot, that just means they
If
got
I-
it as an adult.
If I pulled up my Scout version of a DD 214, like I would qualify to wear those because I earned the
Yeah.
Arrow of Light as a kid, and then I earned the whatever the
And this-
Holy Day, whatever the Catholic one is. I
Yeah,
took that as a
Adultary
kid.
Day.
There's
That's what it
probably,
is. Yeah.
I don't know, probably 50 different square knots that are in circulation at any given moment. And they'll come, some of those are, 3 of those are youth awards, maybe there's more. Several of those are recognitions, for service, whether for just volunteerism. And there's some of their training awards you earn along the way for having completed training for your certain position or level and having done it for a number of years. So
I think we would have qualified. There's like one for creating a new unit.
yeah, so
I
one
wanna say-
voice award for
So like
starting
we
to-
could get that one.
I
Like
want, I want a uniform now.
Yeah, we're gonna get you to start a new unit and earn
Yeah.
your first square knot. That's
There
what
we
we're gonna do.
There we go.
I need to learn knots. Ooh.
There's some guys. You've seen like military veterans. Where
Yeah.
it goes like all the way up.
up.
There. I know guys that like it goes under the collar. Like they'll get. You're only supposed to wear what 3 rows
I
of
think
them.
it's, yeah,
think?
9
They
Yeah.
recommend 3.
Yeah, but there's always that one guy. There was a kid
I'd
that I
do
was in
it.
Scouts with that like every square inch of his uniform like had something, and it was like he just looked like a goof. You know what I mean? Like okay, like
in general.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm still looking. So I see that on you have this. It looks like a
Powder
powder horn.
It is a
Yeah.
powder
Okay.
horn. There was it's a type of training that Scouts have run to encourage leaders to learn about a variety of activities that they can involve their units with. So, for example, our council ran a powder horn training back in 2015. I happen to have been on the staff, and we did all sorts of activities. We did shooting, pistol, rifle, shotgun,
Very cool.
muzzle loaders. We did cooking. We did orienteering. We were even unique enough, this hadn't been done before. We had one of the companies come from Rochester and do a gaming
That's cool.
setup. Because again, you got to meet the needs of your customers.
Yeah, of course.
And the youth were involved with gaming, so we brought it in, and why not have a troop meeting where you have a gaming night?
Yeah.
And have a little tournament or whatever. But that's what that was.
Cool.
It was a training that went over 3 days, and again, we just put in as much as we could, caving, aquatic type things,
Mhm.
kayaking.
Massive introduction to skills on a variety of levels. So, if a leader, one of the things we find out as a leader, you're very reluctant to do skills with the kids that you're not familiar with. And
Sure.
so it's kind of a way to make a soft introduction to some of these topics to people to hopefully say,
Yeah.
hey, I really love this caving idea. Let's go try this again.
Very cool.
And what we also gave them was contacts. So like, for example, I gave them my contacts and the other instructors in our council and said, you want to do shooting sports? Here are the people, contact them. They'd love to do it for you. You want to do aquatics? Here's some contacts
So
for
there's
aquatics.
networking involved.
Exactly.
Cool.
So some people got it confused and thought it was a training, but really it wasn't a training. It's almost a networking thing, an experiential network.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
And I see above the troop numbers, like you have Iroquois Trail, you have Seneca, that's just your the council.
Yep.
You have a purple one. You guys, I guess they're both purple, but they're different. You have, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. What's it?
So this is called your lodge flap. I'll put mine out.
I don't even have mine on.
So in the Boy Scouts, there is the Order of the Arrow. So that
Can we
was
talk
start.
about
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, just making sure.
So the scouting goes back to like the early 1900s. Started in 1910 in the USA, and shortly thereafter, I think in 1913, maybe it was like real shortly after, they wanted to establish somewhat of a mix between like a fraternal organization and like a National Honor Society of the best scouts that, you know, exemplified the scout ideals and all that kind of stuff. And it was based on camping, heavily based on camping. So as a youth to qualify, is it still 20 some days or 14?
20 days and nights. I think, 20 days and nights of camping. 50.
Yeah.
50 days.
Something like
least
that. And
one
you-
long trip.
Yeah, one
you-
long-term week at summer camp.
Yeah. So like within 1 year, you've got to go camping 3 to 4 weekends and go to summer camp, right? So you've got to be involved. And then every year your troop will do an election and they'll say, you know, only people, I think it's one of the only organizations in the world where its members are chosen by non-members. So
That's cool.
the only people that can vote are the people that aren't in it already. At least that's how my troop does. I think that's how
That's the way
they
everybody
still do
does
it. Yeah. It's been a few years since I've really been involved, but yeah. So they say, hey, all of you, like who's the best one of your bunch? Like who's the scout that is the best scout? And you get tapped out usually at a camporee, which a camporee is where multiple troops, you know, the council. Do you guys do like district camporees and
Absolutely.
council camporees?
That's something we do at the troop meetings.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So like our council, we would do them at the spring or fall camporees, and you get they call it tapped out, and they're moving away from. I know a lot of the
Called out,
regalia called out. Yeah, and I know they're moving away from a lot of the Native American regalia. When I was in, that was a huge. You know, everyone would come out in headdresses and the local, you know, Indian regalia, right? And so then there's a ordeal that you go through, and that's what it is called. And when you pass, so like you go for like a weekend camp out, and it's, you know, it's not hazing, it's nothing like a fraternity initiation, but it's a scout. You know, you go there, you do some service, you do, you know, there's a little bit of I don't want to say suffering, but you go through a process, right? It's I'm making it
A lot of
sound so
culture.
bad.
A lot of cultures
Yeah.
do that though. Like you have to.
Yeah, you
You have
gotta pay
to
your
go through
dues
the
kind of to
process.
get in there. Yeah. Like, you know, it's very, very
Tasteful.
obviously. Yeah. I don't know what it was like back in the 30s, but obviously nowadays they're very you know, safety is paramount. I'll just put it that way. And it's about fellowship and camping and doing service projects. And the Order of the Arrow is about service with a smile. That's like our if the scout motto is be prepared, that's the Order of the Arrow. And so when you complete that weekend and you're a member of the order, you'll get a sash like this one. This one's mine. And it has just an arrow. It'll have just the arrow on it. And then you will come back and they'll have like OA only, Order of the Arrow, only like campouts or events or service projects. Most of it's service projects. You'll go to, I'm sure, Cutler and Massaweepy and do, you know, hey, this building needs some repair. This trail needs some work. That's the kind of stuff we would do. And we would always help like get the camp ready, right, for the kids. We would put the tents up. We'd take the tents down every summer. So after a year of being in the Order of the Arrow, you can come back another weekend and kind of like seal your membership, become like a full brother, right? So brotherhood, they add these 2 bars, right? And that's like the full member. You're a member like for life, essentially, right? And you're in there. And then they have what's called Vigil Honor, which is the triangle in the middle. It's not a rank. No one's better for being a Vigil. You're still a brotherhood like member. Yeah. But what they do is it's still 50 to 1. I think it's for every 50 people in your.
Actually, because I know we did a lot of recruiting to get members back into the lodges here, so
you can get more numbers up. Yeah. So your lodge, right? So every council has a lodge of their Order of the Arrow members, So that's what this patch is for, right? Denotes my lodge. So every year, however big your lodge is, mine had like 200 members ish. So every year we could pick 4 people to become vigils, right? So I think I got it in 2006. I was like 16. That was a good scouting year for me. That was the year I got Eagle Scout, and then I got Vigil, and then my council had a Distinguished Eagle Scout award, and I got that too that year. So that was like, you know, some people peak in high school. Like that was my. It never got better for me in scouts.
Because we can't do beers. Silverware cheers.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Thank you guys for coming on stream.
Thank you for having us.
I appreciate that.
I think this is the first time anyone's ever made the Cuban beans.
Yeah,
and
I've
rice.
never had Cuban. We have a friend, Dave.
So this will be really good, and we'll be doing it again.
The
It's actually
fettuccine
really
is
good.
amazing.
Yeah.
The fettuccine is great. We have a friend, Dave.
That's nice.
He absolutely loves the Cuban beans and rice.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of made this in his honor.
It actually is really good.
You want
It is
to? I got a bag, man. Like, can you hand me some water so I can start this creme
But
brulee?
you're not gonna not give some of the snack man.
I asked.
Josiah over there, some streams will be over here, and every 5 minutes he's opening up another snack back there. He's got snack after snack.
It really came in handy when we did the one chip challenge.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the one chip challenge?
I wasn't making fun. I was jealous.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, like,
Thanks, bud.
my favorite patch that Eric's got over there is the National Camp School. So I don't know. It's probably hard to see, but it's like a little tent with like antlers over it, right? So National Camp School, I went in 2008 for outdoor skills. It used to be called Scoutcraft, but outdoor skills. So that's like your core, I would think, competencies of being a scout, like making a fire and tying knots and learning lashings and just the
Outdoor cooking.
yes, outdoor cooking, all of like the meat and potatoes
Did I
of like
pass?
what you think
I
of
did indoor cooking.
You did very good.
We're gonna have to take away your liquid fuels card, but
Yeah.
that's okay. It's fine. So I went to be a Scoutcraft outdoor skills director. So when you work at scout camp, like they were saying with the shooting sports stuff, for every area of camp, whether it's the waterfront, whether it's, you know, running the program of the camp, or what are some of the other ones? Obviously, shooting
It's
sports,
shooting sport. You got handicraft. You
Mhm.
got
Nature.
We do mountain biking. A lot of camps don't, but we have a mountain biking program.
Yeah.
In Massawepie. Aquatics obviously is huge.
yeah, right,
Nature
Mhm.
is also a very large program area.
yeah,
And so for every one of those, though, Copen climbing,
Mhm.
another big one.
Mhm.
They have, like you said, a camp school certification area.
So you go, you know, I went to camp as a kid, right? I did the camp stuff, earned my merit badges, had fun, whatever. Then I started working at camp, and, you know, they train you, but you start out as like a junior, you know, whatever kind of position. Like my first year in outdoor skills, you know, I was teaching kids like tenderfoot, which is your one of your first ranks, the first rank. I guess scout is the first rank, but tenderfoot. You know, how to do a square knot, how to do, you know, a bowline, how to do some simple lashings. So very, very, very basic stuff. But eventually you want to, you know, you want to get a promotion, you want to run an area, or you want, you know, the scouts want you to know how to run an area. So you get to go. I was like 18. I went to, it's in Schuylkill, Pennsylvania. Can't think of the name of the camp.
Hawk Mountain.
Hawk Mountain, yeah. So I
Did
went
get a prize
to
for that one. All right.
so I went to Hawk Mountain, and we got to basically be a kid again. And they had like national level like leaders in the scouts teaching you how to be, you know, a camp director or how to run your area of camp. So, you know, I went, you know, my whole life I've gone to like, you know, I went to a small farm, high school. I went to a small college. I was in a small troop. Our council was small. We had 3 employees, maybe 4, including the secretary and the whole council.
Right.
So when I went to, you know, like national camp school, you know, I'm talking to guys that run an area and they've got, you know, like a Massawepie outdoor skills guy's probably got 4 or 5 or 6, you know, they're big. So that was a big eye opener that like, wow, other councils, you know, have bigger camps, and I'm sure there's smaller ones than us, but there's a whole gamut of scouting that's out there. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and I did my camp school in '91 in Massawepie,
Mhm.
which
Cool.
having grown up in New Hampshire, right? and it's kind of come full circle now. I'm working here. So, and we still run Camp School now, Sweepy. And so we're the last one of the year. Eric's been on staff for that, on the shooting sports group, and helped with that as well. And it's kind of cool to see people from all over the country come in, Puerto Rico, coming in to do Camp School. And a lot of them are late recruits because we're the last, because being the last one.
Oh, sure.
So you got a lot of people that just
Right
signed
before
on
summer
last week.
camp. Yeah.
But for a lot of these areas, you have to be Camp School certified, or you're not running that program in your camp. So especially when it comes to shooting sports and aquatics, those two areas.
Right. You have to.
You have to. And if you don't pass Camp School, that's a little bit of pressure too, right? Someone comes out, they don't pass Camp School, they are not running that program. in
Right.
camp.
Right. And so this was something that, the kids don't necessarily know about this kind of stuff. But once I started working at Scout Camp, like there is a national inspection team that comes to every camp during the summer. And you have a whole litany. There's like a book that's like that thick of all the regulations that you have to meet that your camp is safe. And this is beyond like New York State has their own book of like, if you're going to run a summer camp in New York, you can imagine how thick that is of all the regulations.
Yeah.
So then the Scouts have their own, and I'm sure a lot of there's a lot of overlap there, but still, you have to have all these certifications, you have to have all these boxes checked, and that was always a very stressful time because if you don't get your camp certification, like none of it counts, right? So like, sure, your kid can go camping for a week, but he's not getting any merit badges, or he's not getting, he can't earn his BSA lifeguard, or he wouldn't qualify for OA or any of those types of things, which I don't know how common that is, where they actually don't give camp accreditation. I think
Well, having been on
sure it's happened,
this side
but-
of the fence, it's amazing how many people don't get certified. I mean, every year there's always seems to be one that struggles, especially more so I'd say in aquatics.
At the national level or like somewhat regionally?
And with people coming to Camp School. So you got
a
council setting
I meant like a camp not getting certified.
No, I don't.
That doesn't happen too
I don't recall. I mean, the hoops you have to jump through to run a program. There's no surprises of what we need to have to do to pull off. I mean, there's a lot of frustration coming in. I need to do this. I got to get this lined up. But
What you usually see is occasionally you'll see an area shut down.
Sure.
So maybe they don't have, maybe like Steve was alluding to, someone went to Massweepy, didn't get the certification. So now that camp can't run that area.
Can't run waterfront or
Well,
aquatics.
that one's real bad. But
Yeah. That's the whole reason kids come to camp, basically, right? Shooting. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, shooting sports and the waterfront. Yeah,
it could be rainy and miserable out. We're still shooting.
We got a pavilion, right? Yeah.
So you'll appreciate that. We hosted World Jamboree. We haven't really talked about that before, but 4 years ago, pre-COVID. So every 4 years we do a national jamboree. Big event, 30,000 kids. Post-COVID, they've been a little bit smaller, but just pre-COVID, we held a World Jamboree. They rotate all over the planet. We've held two. I think we've hosted two in the history of the BSA.
Wow.
So we built a new jamboree facility in West Virginia at the summit, and we hosted it, kind of co-hosted it with Canada and Mexico. For Scouts coming, Boy Scouts of America, for most places, aquatics is the number one thing they want to do coming to camp. World Jamboree, it was shooting sports.
Sure, right. You're in America. Yeah.
It was the number one thing. And something we really didn't expect to happen.
Sure.
Was also all these kids coming from Europe and Africa and everywhere else.
Really?
They want shooting sports was the number thing they wanted to do.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I went to Jambo in 2005. So that's National Jamboree. So yeah, there's, your troop goes camping. Sometimes you'll be friends with like the neighboring troop. Maybe you'll both go camping. That's kind of fun. There's camporees where, like, again, your council's large. So you might have a district camporee. So it's like all of this neighborhood. But then there's council ones too, where it's the whole council, right? And then they don't really do regional ones. That used to be.
There is talk about doing a New York one.
That's cool.
Massachusetts does a mass jam every.
That makes sense. They're
4
so
years or
small.
something.
Yeah, like geographically small. Like I'm sure with Boston they have huge troops, but yeah.
So, but the national jamborees can be huge.
The national, when I went, I think it was like 40,000 youth.
It's crazy.
It was still at Fort AP Hill in Virginia. So like historically there was like an army base that Jambo was always held at. But then when did they build the summit? Like,
so 2010 was the last one, 100th anniversary jamboree for the 100th anniversary of the Boy Scouts of America. So 2010 was at AP Hill. So that was the last one there. And then
which was a good move. That place was miserable. You're just out in the middle of a field, like there. I mean, it was cool to go to it, but like the pictures that I've seen, the landscape of the summit, like it's so much beautiful. Like,
Well, the challenge was, you think you're building a city, right?
Yeah.
It's 40,000 kids plus visitors.
Right.
Opening and closing arena shows, you're 100,000 people sitting for a show. I mean, that is a massive concert by anybody's standard.
mhm.
And you've got to have infrastructure, ambulance, fire, police,
Right.
all
Right.
that in place. Because anything can go wrong. You're a city at that point.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
over the course of all these years, we're putting a lot of money into underground infrastructure facilities
Mhm.
at a military base that we don't own.
Right.
It's happy
Yeah.
to let us use it.
Right.
And so the Boy Scouts of America came back and said, no, we really should just look at buying a place.
Makes
And
total
over
sense.
time, it'll be a better win. So
Mhm.
they worked a great deal with the state of West Virginia, and thanks to the Bechtel family, bought a piece of property in West Virginia outside of Beckley, and they have started to develop that. And so we've done now, 3 national jamborees at the summit. We've hosted a world jamboree. My understanding is now we are the emergency backup site too for the world jamboree.
It makes sense because I'm sure there's no other. Every other country's kind of in the same position. They probably don't have a facility
Nobody has a facility
like that where they own it
Yeah.
and it's always ready to go. Like, yeah.
And so we'll and actually there was a world jamboree this summer in Korea, and that ran into some challenges. But like the next world jamboree is in Poland, right, with everything going on right now. It's like,
that'll be fun.
is that a go
Yeah.
or no go? So having an emergency backup spot, because they'll have
Oh,
to make
man.
that decision pretty quick.
Sure.
Actually. But
Yeah, yeah.
when I was a kid, the world jamboree was scheduled to be in Iran, and it got canceled.
Wow. Yeah.
Because of so that's in 1970. That would have been in 1980, I guess.
Yeah.
80.
Which I know it probably would have been fine. I feel like the world that'd be like an Olympics type of situation where like, okay, nobody's gonna mess with it, but I could see too, like, yeah, we're not gonna take that chance either. Yeah.
Right, health and safety is first. So
Yeah.
there's been a couple that have struggled for different reasons, and so having kind of that emergency backup
Mhm.
spot with the summit. I mean, it's a beautiful property, it's huge, and it allows for the kids to do a lot of things they wouldn't do, climbing and bikes and mountain biking and shooting sports, and just a great facility.
Super cool. Let's go back. Do we have any comments in the chat?
I ditched chat for a while. I'm so sorry.
So responsible. He's cooking. Yeah, it's fine.
One of our favorite viewers, Gemma, which is my grandma, asks if Camp Samwood is still open.
Yeah,
Samwood
I think
is still
Samwood.
open.
Yeah.
Samwood's
Didn't we go
still
to Samwood once?
We did go to Sam Wood once.
open. So the Iroquois Trail Council's now merged into Buffalo, but they're operating at the summer. I
Yeah.
understand. So
Western New York Scout Council, I think, is
Yeah,
their
new
new
name,
name. Yeah, for it. Which I won't say anything.
Yeah.
They didn't win any creativity awards with that one, but that's all right. It's very descriptive. You know where that council is.
You know where it
Let's
is.
put it that way. Yeah.
Donna asked if we're having a sale on these. For you, Donna, we're always having a sale on these.
Weren't we giving something away tonight?
We were. We can get into that now.
Is that like the kid who's like, teacher, you didn't collect the homework?
Yeah. Are there more comments later?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get through a few more.
Sure.
Michael asks, he's curious about what shooting equipment the Scouts have and how often it gets updated.
Well, we've been using Savage Mark IIs.
Great choice.
We get them through CMP, the Civilian Marksmanship Program. And we try to have a equipment rotation in the sense of picking up a couple firearms each year. That way, as they get worn, we take them out of service because, if they start missing, there's nothing more frustrating, especially with the rifles, than being there and, click instead of bang. And you think, oh, gee, I would have had a good shot.
Yeah.
So, there's that. Same thing with the shotguns. Usually we don't pick up too many on the off season unless we start seeing a need. Like if all of a sudden we're working up a shotgun and we've got one that's having problems ejecting or something along those lines, we'll take a look at it, maybe take it into a gunsmith, have them look at it, and then say, okay, we really do need, instead of picking up one, let's pick up 2 semis and, move along that way.
What do you use for shotguns? What do you have?
We use,
Sure, it's a ton of
mostly we
variety.
have 1187s. We have
Okay,
some,
yeah.
old 1100s. I think we've got one Mossberg.
Yeah,
So that's what we have currently.
yeah. Like 12 gauge, 20 gauges.
No, we have both.
Yeah.
There's always a discussion there in terms of we don't allow two different gauges on the line ever.
That makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
You know,
safety.
that's just a no-no.
Mhm.
So sometimes they'll bring out the 12 gauge for the older scouts, or if there's an adult shoot. But overall, we go with the 20 gauge simply because, even though I don't want to get too picky here, but the 20 and the 12 really have about the same recoil when you talk about semi-automatics.
Yeah,
But the big issue is the weight of the gun.
sure.
The 12 gauge is much heavier, and when you're getting 12 and 13-year-olds out there that are relatively small,
Mhm.
you
It
know,
could be a lot.
and then all of a sudden, I'm sure you guys have done shotgun before, you know, we lean forward when we're shooting, and if you've got a heavy gun, you tend to lean back,
Yeah,
and then
Yeah.
you're
Center
not
of gravity's
shooting
off.
well, you're not having success, you no longer want to do shotgun.
yeah. That's what it's all about. Like you said, you want in some areas of the program, you want them to fail, like that first camp out, you know. But then in others, it's like, well, you know, we can fail, but do it in a way where we're not getting like knocked back on our butt because we're getting a 12 gauge at 11 years old. Yeah, 12 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, 22s, single shot only, right? So there's
Right.
no clips, no.
Well,
So-
no, I've got to say there, we do have magazines, but again, going back to safety, we have specific standard operating procedures. If we have magazines, and this is, you were talking about the camp standards.
Mhm.
This is one of those camp standards that if you have magazines, your SOP must state, you know, when you're done shooting, okay, cease fire, blah, 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 magazines out.
Sure.
You know, so if you do have magazines, you've got to have that command.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Just a lot of love for the Pinewood Derby stuff. That was
Hell yeah.
Tis the season right now.
Yeah.
This is it, right? Because the kids for those who don't know, right? You get a little wooden block of wood, 4 tires. Usually about Christmas time, every Cub Scout gets one, and you know they sit down and hopefully cut it out with their mom or
I
dad,
see your bolts.
and then
Are you okay with mixing? Sorry.
yeah, with that,
I
you know,
used to
that-
camp.
that March
Figures.
is kind of Pinewood Derby month,
Right.
a lot of packs, and they move up from unit Pinewood Derby winners, move to district council, so it's the season.
It filled me with a lot of nostalgia. My pack that I was in 20 years ago, oh my God, 30 years ago, almost 25 years ago. They have, you know, there's that little board where all the cars get put up on, and like this is car number 1, car number 2, and that's how they do their heats or whatever. They've got the same like piece of board that someone made in like 1983 that like my car sat up on there, and like the pack is still using that same board because like we're still sponsored by the same organization. They keep it in the same locker they did, you know.
Well, and some of these packs technologies come in, right? You got cameras. And
Oh my
instant
God,
replay.
yeah. That was my dad. My dad's an engineer, so he was the one that got like the laser, so that we knew like exactly who was the winner and what their time
They
was.
got timers down to
Yeah.
3/100ths of a second.
Yeah, it's like
It's amazing.
it's like it's drag racing or whatever, the not Formula One, but yeah, it's fun.
Very competitive.
Oh, yeah.
More so for dads. And some
Dude,
Don't
safety
take my
circle.
token. You're not gonna take
Dude,
my- you're not gonna
safety
take my
circle. You're cutting towards yourself.
I'm not.
You're cutting towards me.
No, don't be a bitch.
Now be careful. That's the best part of the creme brulee. Put it on right.
I am.
Just you get your blowtorch out so we can char the top of it. Like,
I don't typically work with open flames.
oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
typically work.
So,
Period.
I'm retired.
so I know it's probably difficult, but what would be if you had to pick like one of your
Thank you.
favorite like scouting moments or favorite,
Great question.
you know, just interactions maybe with a scout or just what would be your one, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go. I mean, I could probably pick a couple. You know, you talk about visual honor and ceremonies. Some things are really cool. But you know, when I was like 12 years old, we were doing environmental science merit badge, and so the now I grew up in New Hampshire, right? So the environmental science merit badge requires that you have to do wilderness observations and go over these little 3-hour, 4-hour studies.
Mhm.
And so you got to get those all in, and you got to do 4 of these at summer camp. How do you get them all in? So we ended up climbing the top of the mountain where our scout camp is at. We're going to do these 3-hour observations till dark, and we're going to camp overnight under the stars on top of the mountain.
Cool.
And for me, as a 12-year-old kid, it was the first time I had ever seen Northern Lights. And
Oh,
so we're out
that's
there
that's
doing these
awesome.
things, there's a dance land. I'm just like 12-year-old kid, like in awe of these things. Wow, this is real cool. And I fell asleep. somewhere in the middle of all that. But it was just the coolest experience as a kid. I'd never seen that before in my life. And,
That's cool. Yeah.
How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat?
I'm not done, right? Yeah, so don't give me any.
My personal best experience, I think it's one that they wouldn't allow anymore. But when I was in Explorers, we went up the big thing with my post, and again, I was from Long Island, and we would go up to Racket Lake and do the Racket River, all those things.
Yeah.
And we were canoeing along there, and we were doing gunnel pumping.
Okay.
And that was just the neatest thing, in my opinion.
What was it?
You get up and you get on the gunnels. You put your feet on them, and you're bouncing the canoe. It's either that or when the advisor got into ramming each other.
Yeah.
Now, again, that was back in the day.
Sure.
That
yeah.
doesn't happen anymore.
That these guys will make fun of me, but mine involves canoes as well. So when I was, again, probably like 12, maybe 13, I had just made patrol leader, right, in my little patrol of misfits, and so I was at patrol leader camp out, right, that we did every summer, and it was down at Allegheny. Is it a national forest or whatever it was, Allegheny, right? And so we had like a reserve every year. We had the same site, whatever. And so this is my first year there, and there's all the older kids are there, and they're real, they know everything about whatever. And yeah, there was just, we would, I just have this memory of being out on that lake with all the troop canoes, and we just had like a big, you had those suction things to get the water out of the canoe. We're having like a fight with those, and we're swamping the canoes, and we had the old like aluminum Grumman ones, and like if you swamp those, like they'll go down. Like if you fill them with water, like they're buoyant when they're empty, but so we'd have canoes that were like, they're like 20-foot canoes, and we would like swamp it, and we'd be like holding it with our feet down at the bottom, and we'd be like, we lost our canoe, and the leaders would be like freaking out, and we'd be like, no, gotcha, and we like pull it back up. Just like afternoon of just like kid, like fun. There was no phones, nobody had a phone anywhere. Like, yeah, that was just freedom, and it was I cherish that, that memory. Working at scout camp, there's nothing like. I think you said you worked at scout camp, right? Yeah, there's nothing like working at scout camp. I think that's an experience all of its own. That you gotta just live that, and especially for me that was some formative years for me. So I'll always have some fond memories of that. But I don't know if there's any people in the audience or in the comments that want to leave a scouting story or memory or.
Yeah, we've had a couple.
That's awesome.
They're lengthy, so it's hard to like read.
Yeah.
Chat. I urge if you guys are on Facebook or anything, you take a look and just read through the stories, because stories are always great. We love stories. Or if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, please leave a story of scouting. We like to read that stuff. Michael again asks, what would you say the kids are least interested in these days? Somebody adds, like, it probably varies on age, but what do you kind of see as the years have gone on is kind of like dying as far as activities go? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, go ahead. I got one. I mean, I'll say I don't know that programs are died out, but if you go to Eric or you go to my dad or Eric's dad, when they were in Scouts, the merit badges have changed over time.
Oh yeah.
So, for instance,
Really?
when I was in Cub Scouts, Scouts, computer merit badge was the only technology merit badge. There was one. There's probably 15 technology-based merit badges today.
Like what?
From everything from there's several that are all in that computer realm now. But even
Like coding? Like coding
and things of that nature.
Programming.
For programming. And
so cool.
yeah,
It's
things
very
of
cool.
that nature. So that is really, these technology badges are even, I always call it plastics, but it's not. But there's one on, material making
Yeah.
and stuff. That
They
but
get robotics. I believe.
robotics now, things that didn't
It's
exist.
so cool.
Yeah, filmmaking, cinematography, right? But things that exist today that didn't exist. Of course, when we were kids, you had all these agricultural-based merit badges.
Yeah.
Most of which have all gone away. Signaling doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I think signaling still exists. But we're at 137 merit badges as of right now.
Mhm.
They've gone up and down, somewhere between 125 and 142, I think. But they've always constantly changed, and we've slowly seen these kind of agricultural badges going out. And some, like say, are still lingering. But when I was a kid, you got rabbit raising and you got bee raising, and it's like I said, some still exist, but most are gone. And then and all these new technology badges come in. And a lot of kids are really into those.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool.
I like that BSA is able to stay with the team.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a cool part where it's maybe not easy per se to add a merit badge. I'm sure it's a process that the scouts go through, but yeah, as interests change, like 3D printing. I don't know if that's one or it's part of maybe another one, but like again, even like that didn't exist when I was in scouts, and that's a huge thing that people are into now. Or even like you said, gaming.
Yeah, video game design, right?
Yeah. Like when I was in scouts, all that stuff was banned. Like you couldn't bring, if you were found with a Game Boy at camp, they would keep it until they would send it home with you and you left. Whereas now maybe that still is the case, but like you're doing computer stuff like at camp. You're doing robotics and whatever. Yeah.
They should definitely do 3D printing.
I don't know if that's one, but
We don't know.
it's probably on the radar. I'm
Let's
sure.
do Venture Crew again. We'll have our own 3D printing
Hell yeah, dude.
badge.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
manufacturing,
Yeah. It's basically a robot, so it's part of robotics, I bet. Like I remember 2010 for the 100th anniversary, they brought back some old merit badges that were from like the 1910s.
That's so cool.
Like stalking. Not people like you're used to, Ty, but like of animals and stalking game, and there were some.
It was like 4 of them they brought back.
Yeah, like maybe like foraging or something, or like but you had to be a youth, and you had to you only had that year to earn those merit badges, and you could never earn them again.
That's so
cool. It was kind of cool. So cool. I was already too old, so it didn't matter. But I was already 20. I couldn't earn them. But yeah. You had kind of asked of some of the history of scouting. I know we're getting a little long
what is the history?
in the thing. I do appreciate. I think it was cool. So Lord Baden-Powell, right? He was a British Army officer, and he would be out in the field with his men, and he would be frustrated that, like, okay, yes, a soldier's job is to fight. That's what we need them for, but they only do that like 0.001% of the time that they are soldiers. The other 99.99% of the time, they're camping, basically. They're hiking or they're camping. That's what they do. So he would be like, none of these like Londoners know how to do that. Like, okay, I can teach them how to use a rifle. The military teaches them how to use a rifle and shoot and stuff, but they don't teach them camping. So he was friends with some Americans, and I believe some Native American influenced Americans. He spent some time over here and kind of learned, I don't want to call it cowboying, but kind of like the cowboy kind of stuff. And he was like, well, we need to have a youth program where we can teach young men, obviously specifically at that time, young men only, how to just survive out in the field and how to do all of the non-fighting stuff that soldiers have to do. And that is how it was born. And he Brown Sea Island, right?
1907 in England.
Yeah, he led a crew of some young men that were just like friends of, or like sons of his friends, that he took to this island and taught them what he thought was important. And I thought it was neat. He used to do, like, he was I don't want to say a spy, but like when he was a younger officer, he was like an intelligence officer. So he would go and like pretend to be like a bird watcher and like draw this like really detailed, beautiful drawing of like a bird, but it was actually a map of like the enemy base that he was like seeing, but it was like coded like in the painting of the bird. And he's like, oh yeah, like, erase the wing and that's the base or whatever.
That's so cool.
So yeah, so he started scouting over in Britain in 2007. And then, by 1910, what was it? The American businessman walking in the fog, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, William D. Boyce, I think it's much more legend than it is reality, but
it sounds good though.
It sounds good. Well, he was also a newspaper publisher. Mm-hmm. Let's keep that in mind, right? We're having the story together. So, but William D. Boyce, allegedly lost in the fog in England, meets a scout, can't find his place where he's going to meet. They ask the scout for directions. The scout gets him to where he's got to go. He offers the scout a tip, and the scout refuses, says he's a scout. He's doing his good deed. He can't take a tip. William Du Bois asked the kid if he'd wait for him after his meeting. He had his quick meeting, and then he asked the scout to take him to the scout place where he could learn more about the program, and then allegedly, get all the information he needed, brought it back. And then in 1910, starts Boy Scouts of America
Mhm.
in the United States. And so and interesting at the same time, there's other scout organizations popping up. There's and a lot of different organizations.
Daniel Boone Scouts or whatever.
Yeah,
there
and
was a
so
whole
they started
bunch
to
of
consolidate a lot of these. Daniel Carter Beard, Ernest Thomas Seton had different scouting organizations. They all kind of folded in, and then a lot of them were looking for Bain Powell's sort of endorsement of scouting. And so
Sure.
he picked the Boy Scouts of America, and then the rest is sort of history.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love the history of it.
I think it's neat. Yeah, I think it's neat. I know even when I was a scout, they didn't want us wearing like camo or like army stuff. There used to be obviously a very military influence into scouting, and it was kind of a launching pad. I know a lot of people in the military were scouts, and there is some overlap of the Venn diagram there, but I know ever since probably like the 80s or 90s, we are not a paramilitary organization. That's not the point at all. It is leadership development, which again is a great thing for the military to have people learn to be leaders younger in life and have those skills. But
and if you go to the different academies and stuff, the number of Eagle Scouts on
Mhm.
campus at any time is a huge percentage of the student body. And what they say, 12% of the U.S. military comes through scouting. So
Wow.
it's huge stats.
Yeah.
But again, we're no way tied together, but
Right.
we do get a lot of alumni. That's what they go.
I want my military to come from the Scouts personally. Like, I know they're not the same thing, but I feel like you're so far ahead if you start there with a lot of things, right? Because
Mhm.
it's teaching that leadership aspect of things.
cool. What else we got?
We gotta do a giveaway.
Let's do it. So we haven't done one in a long time, but we used to,
Ricardo's already got the.
we used to do a
PowerPoint.
lot of like gun giveaways and stuff. So people have been tuning in and participate, did to like and share, and they earn points and stuff. So go ahead, do what you got to do.
We're all just gonna look at Ricardo while he tries to bring up the PowerPoint.
All right, we got that coming up, and we're bringing up the drop.
Okay, look at that. So we had a random generator, right?
We took all of the names. He just holds refresh. It pulls all the names that we put into an Excel sheet, and it just the second he let his finger off, looks like our friend Nick is a winner. I don't want to dox him too much. We don't like to. Guns are weird today. We don't like to dox people. But
No.
yeah, Nick.
What did he win?
congrats. He won a Henry. We didn't bring
What?
it out, but Henry, I think it was an H001. Yeah.
Yeah.
So congrats, bud.
Real nice. Come on in, do your background check, and it's yours.
We love when any of our viewers win stuff.
Yeah.
Try to get.
It's super fun.
It's a gun. It's
Yeah,
cool.
The government hates it.
That's what else is great.
The
Anytime
government
we can make the government
hates
mad. Um,
All right, we got any?
what did you guys have? Anything else before?
Yeah, how could youth get involved, or if you're a parent out there, you want your kid to get involved?
Yeah.
What's the best way to get involved in scouting?
Anywhere in the country, doesn't matter where you're at, you can go to a website, beascout.org, and you say, hey, I want to find out more information about my kids, and whether you want to get in Cub Scouts or Scouts BSA or Shooting Sports Venturing Program like you and Eric both have run, or exploring, right? You can go in and you can type in beascout.org, you type in your zip code, and let's say you look for a program for a boy or a girl, and up will pop all the options in your community. So it works, whether you're in Batavia, or whether you're in Rochester, whether you're in Florida. So if you say, hey, I want to get my grandkids in scouting, this works too. So you type in the zip code, beascout.org. You can find more information about scouting in your community. If you're in a large community, you probably have several scout options available to you. You may find that there's one at the school your child or grandchild goes to, one at a community center, which is cool because you get some night of the week opportunities to pick from. If you're in a small rural community, you probably got one choice.
Yeah.
The challenge a little bit, but
Yeah.
but with that, go to beascout.org. You can find more information about the programs, what they do. If you want more information just about scouting, I always tell people you can come to our website, which is senecawaterways.org. You find a lot more of what we're doing, events, activities, things we got going on, the programs for your kids, or even fundraisers we're running for the organization to raise money.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, super cool. Well, guys, thank you so much
you.
for
Thank
coming
you.
out, and thank you, anonymous behind the scenes guy over there, for helping coordinate all this. And yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I hope we maybe maybe encourage some people to look back into scouting. I know, there's been some ups and downs and things, but that is 100% the best youth leadership development program that has ever and will ever exist. And they can't take that away. If you want your kid to learn, how to be a leader and how to follow the 12 points of the Scout law and the Scout oath, I think it's very important that your kids have those foundations and they get those opportunities. You go to school, you're in school and you're hanging out with kids, you're socializing, but you're never put in that position. Like I was 12 years old and I was in, I was a leader of other kids my age, and I was, not like you're in charge of them like it's the military again, but like they voted me to be in charge, and there's not many other places I think where youth can do that.
No.
Especially as accessible and like you said, with so many options. You might want to just learn about being a fireman or a firefighter, right? And you can do that through scouting. You can learn about different careers and different avenues of things you can do in life. And like when we had our venture crew, we didn't do any advancement. We didn't do any of the merit badges. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff. We just had fun.
Yeah.
And there's units that are like that. There's units where, they're very serious and all their uniforms are pressed and, they do uniform inspections, and people that like that. And then there's groups that like, we only ever had just the t-shirts made up, that was our uniform. We only ever had Class Bs, and we kept the costs as low as we could, and we just had fun with it. And I think there's a unit out there for everybody.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, and from a parent's perspective, you'll see it's absolutely magical. You'll watch your 11-year-old son or daughter go into a scout troop, and they're running around doing activities with 15 and 16-year-olds, and you're like, oh, he's going to get killed. And then, and as a parent, you get to watch this program and how your child interacts with it. And also one day you're at a troop court of honor and your child's 14 and they're running the show.
Yeah.
And you just sit back and say, what happened to my little 11-year-old?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely magical as a parent to watch that leadership development happen in your child. And what's really great about scouting too is that you get to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You get to be part of these activities and outings and be there along the way. And that's, it's a really opportunity really to bond with your child, get to know him or her.
Yeah. And great. Me and my dad were in scouts, like for my youth journey, like all the way through from Tiger through when I got my Eagle Scout and stuff. And he was an assistant scoutmaster in the troop. We'd go on campouts together. And a lot of my, memories that I have with him are all based around scouting. That's what we, he works and, provided for us obviously. And that was our recreation was doing scouting together. So super cool. Any other things in the chat?
No.
All right.
Everybody's saying great stream. Thank you guys
Cool.
so much.
Yeah. Thanks guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.